All right, you already know what time it is, man. We're finally there. We're finally on tier 10 of the conspiracy theory iceberg. This shit is finally over, bro. I hope you guys have enjoyed the ride up until now. I just want to point out that this is probably the wackiest tier, which makes sense considering it's the tier on the bottom. Yeah, shit gets wacky, bro. But do your best to stay along with it. I tried my best to understand it, and I'll do my best to explain. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And let's just jump into this. All right, first off, we have the Bank of Souls. And the Bank of Souls conspiracy theory is a theory that Christians or other people believe that our souls actually existed before birth and that we come from this giant spiritual tree and we fall down into this bank of souls, and then our souls are then carried by the angel Gabriel and Layla to the womb. Now the idea is that there is this tree of life that was created by God or a God or some omnipotent being that created a set number of souls that will come down to the earth and live and die naturally. And once everybody has lived a natural life, the world will end. Now, there's also an idea that unnatural deaths, such as murder, will give a soul another chance to actually live to its full potential. And yeah, this is where it gets like really like kind of right-wingy, I guess. I don't know. A theory off of this theory is that the quote-unquote elites legalized abortion in order to prevent souls from living natural lives and thus keeping the world from ending and thus letting them rule on earth in their positions of power and all that shit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Bank of Souls. All right, next up we have incorruptible saints. And incorruptibility is basically a Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox belief that divine intervention allows some human bodies, specifically saints, to completely or partially avoid the normal process of decomposition after death as a sign of their holiness. Incorruptibility is a thought to occur even in the presence of factors which normally hasten decomposition, as in the cases of Saints Catherine of Genoa, Julie Billiart, and Francis Xavier. There's these incorruptible saints whose bodies are miraculously preserved after death, defying the normal process of decomposition. And Saint Cecilia is probably one of the first known saints to be incorrupt, and the bodies of these saints can be found in many places around the world. They're not like actual mummies, as their skin is soft and their limbs are pliable, and they're not really as dry as the skeletal remains of mummies. And under usual circumstances, nothing has been done to preserve the bodies of these saints, and in fact, some of them have been covered in quicklime, which should have easily destroyed any human remains, yet some of these saints have proceeded to not have an effect on their decomposition. All right, next up we have the God of the Gaps never existed. And basically, the God of the Gaps argument refers to a perception of the universe in which anything that currently can be explained by our knowledge of natural phenomena is considered outside the realm of divine interaction, and thus the concept of God is invoked to explain what science is incapable of explaining. In other words, only the gaps in scientific knowledge are explained by the work of God, hence the name God of the Gaps. The idea is that as scientific research progresses and an increasing number of phenomena are explained naturalistically, the role of God diminishes accordingly. The major criticism commonly states that invoking supernatural explanations should decrease in plausibility over time, as the domain of knowledge previously explained by God is decreasing. So there are some theories that go along that as we make more scientific advances, God actually ceases to exist. Or in this main theory, God never existed at all and everything is just scientific. All right, next up we got oil and resources from humans. It's kind of like the Great Cycle, in which there were civilizations prior to us that left resources for us today, or just didn't even leave them intentionally, but as their civilizations died out, we came across these resources and thus began the Great Cycle. And the oil and resources we use today were already used by humans before our present day existence. Yeah. All right, next up we have feelings auto-suppression. And I'm going to be honest, I couldn't find much about this, but there's this thing called expressive suppression. That is the intentional reduction of the facial expression as an emotion. and is a component of emotional regulation. And that it's kind of like stating within this theory that as humans we're becoming more, our feelings are becoming more suppressed. As so, like, think of it like this. So you see like a video of like an animal dying. Now your natural emotion to death should be to be upset about this, but as humans along the years we are becoming more desensitized to these types of things, and we're able to suppress our natural emotions more, and it's not viewed as a good thing. But yeah, I mean, that's what I can find on this. It's, maybe I'm wrong. Let me go watch Windigoon, bruh. All right, next up we got porn stars leeching your energy. I had to go through like a Reddit thread and 4chan threads for this, but the concept is fairly simple. It's that porn stars, or the porn industry itself, are essentially succubi that leech your energy, or basically taking your time from you in this life and using you for a monetary gain. So I would argue and say that this whole concept, porn taking your energy, is why NoFap came about. And I would agree to it to some extent, at least. Not that, these people in the industry are actual demons, but I would agree that this type of indulgence is not overall good for you. You know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. All right, next up we got Virus 23, Despair Code's grandpa. And oh my god, man, this shit is fucking crazy. All right, so basically, like, there's so many threads on this one because they're like, people freak out over this shit. But let me just give you a heads up. We're gonna relax. We're gonna chill because we're cool, bro. We're cool. We're all good here. But basically, the Virus 23 is a neuro-linguistic trap whose mechanism is triggered by the moment you sub-vocalize the words Virus 23. And yeah, once you get that in your brain, Virus 23, the actual word, apparently you become infected with this virus that is an attempt to like take over your brain. Look, I'm gonna be real with you, man. I read about this like a couple weeks ago. I vocalized the word in my head. I'm fine, bro. Y'all don't have to freak out over this shit because I went scouring the internet on this and people freak out, bro. It's okay. You're good. You're fine. I'm fine. Yeah, apparently it's just this big thing here. And then it goes into like meme wars, and memes are like programmed coding and trying to keep us, or trying to control the way you think and all that type of shit. It gets, bro, I told you, it gets crazy. All right, next up we have pancreas denial. And basically it's that the food and water supply have been poisoned to damage the pancreas, which makes humans more obedient. And this goes slightly into the whole fluoride thing. The fluoride being poison in your water, whatnot. All this is done to damage the pancreas, which then results in you no longer being able to regulate blood sugar properly, digestion, all that type of shit. And yeah, that's basically it. All right, next up we have pattern manipulations. And I read like this PDF on this. There's a huge PDF on it, okay? And I'm just going to read the abstract for you. A common assumption is that the belief in conspiracy theories and supernatural phenomena are grounded in illusory pattern perception. In present research, we systematically tested the assumption, and study 1 revealed that such irrational beliefs are related to perceiving patterns in randomly generated coin toss outcomes. In study 2, pattern search instructions exerted an indirect effect on irrational beliefs through pattern perception. So basically, what they were saying in these studies is that people who form or believe conspiracy theories are not as aware when it comes to perceiving certain patterns, and thus they're able to find patterns in places where there are no patterns and patterns don't exist, and thus forming such conspiracies are irrational and not real, basically. All right, next up we have the Ascension Blacklist, or Ascension Prevention, and this one was hard, man. I could barely find anything on this. It was basically like picking the right religion or some I don't know. Yeah, I'm skipping that one. All right, next up we have oikiosis. And basically, the Stoic philosopher Heracles saw oikiosis as the basis for all animal impulses as well as human ethical action. And in his Elements of Ethics, the philosopher Heracles began his account of oikiosis by looking at the beginning of life in animals. In the initial stage of perception, an animal is only aware of their bodies and sensations as belonging to itself. And this awareness is the proton oikion, and the first thing that is one's own and familiar. The self-awareness is continuous as well as dependent on the perception of external objects. And this is why, according to Heracles, children are afraid of the dark, because their weak sense of self fears death in the absence of external entities. Heracles argued that the impulse of self-preservation arises out of oikiosis, as an animal, when it has received the first perception of itself, immediately becomes its own and familiar to itself and its constitution. And in perceiving itself and becoming familiar to itself, it finds value in itself and its own well-being. Essentially, when it comes to humans, you could view this as humans taking oikiosis and developing into this extreme form of selfishness, and that we as humans don't act in accordance with nature. Yeah. All right, next up we have all conspiracies are true. And, well, I mean, it is what it is. It's the theory that all conspiracies are true, but that would, like, really be impossible, honestly. But, all right, next up we have forced soul removal, and this kind of gets into the different beings like demons, archons, spirit entities, succubuses, and reptilians, anything that we've talked about before that involves with sucking the energy out of a human soul, or actually taking the soul from a human. Yeah, it's just any entities that have the ability to do that are linked with forced soul removal. Next up we have real humans died millennia ago. And, yeah, there are a few variations of this theory. The first, that humans come from Mars, and mankind lived on Mars, and it went to hell, and thus we landed here. And it also gives the theory that Mars was the Garden of Eden, and then we came to Earth, and upon arriving, we discovered humans and killed them, and we became the replacement for actual humans. Yeah. You get it, man? There's like a branch of theories, man. There's one that we're actual lizard people from Nibiru who took over the planet from real humans, and now we're actually humans. And there's one theory that the Earth is hollow and that aliens live in our oceans. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got hiring a hitman on yourself. And I don't know if this is like a theory, because you can do this. I wouldn't advise you to, but it's possible to hire hitmen on the dark web. You'd have to pay in Bitcoin. Some guy actually tried to do it. He posed as his ex-fiance and hired a hitman to kill himself, but it didn't work. So they actually got arrested for it. First-degree felony and obstruction of justice and soliciting murder on himself. But yeah, I wouldn't advise. I mean, yeah, it's a thing. All right, next up we have Roman Empire still rules the world. And basically, if you want to get like some people get like really literal with this. One example being that in the book of Enoch, the prophecy of 112 popes, and the fourth beast was the Roman Republic, and it became the abomination of desolation when the Roman Catholic Church became a temporal kingdom in 752 AD and conquered the world officially in 2012. And in 2013, the final pope, a Jesuit, took power, and the Black Pope now reigns. It gets like really into prophetic, biblical things like that. And there's also another side of this, which is just like, it's safe to say that the Roman Empire created bureaucracy, and the concept of senators and the Senate is still widely used by governments today, as is bureaucracy in like renewing your driver's license or passport or any other document. stuff like that. And the Roman legions are also the basis of modern military organizations, as their doctrine, logistics, and battles are still studied and improved upon today by modern day tacticians and strategists. So, yeah, you could go on one side or the other with this theory, but yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, next up we got artifice predance, and this is kind of connected to the Great Cycle and points to things like artificial constructions, like certain metals that have led to human innovation actually existed in civilizations prior to ours, and and prior to theirs. So great cycle, and the pieces are just left behind for us. All right, next up we have fractalization, and in physical cosmology, fractal cosmology is a set of minority cosmological theories which state that the distribution of matter in the universe, or the structure of the universe itself, is fractal across a wide range of scales. And more generally, it relates to the usage or appearance of fractals in the study of the universe and matter. And yeah, we're all just basically we're stardust. We're made out of stardust, universal stardust. All right, next up we got Paleolithic deep state, and this is basically just theories that point to advanced civilizations way before we know them, like before Clovis, before Gobekli Tepe, literally that. Civilization's existence before where humans point them out in history. All right, next up we have encoring. I don't know, bro. I could not find shit on this, bro. Clapping. Please help me in the comments. Please. All right, next up we have God's ego death. And basically, all right, there's a theory and interpretation of the Bible. Let me explain what an ego death is. An ego death is essentially the death of I in all selfishness. There's an interpretation of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which were two kingdoms in ancient times whose, quote, sin was very grievous. Abraham would plead to God to have mercy and eventually compromises with God that if 10 righteous people exist in the kingdoms, then the entire land will be spared. Long story short, there weren't. They were shitty places. And there's an interpretation in the story in Genesis 18:20-21 where God says, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin is so grievous that I will go down there and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. And some people believe that when angels visited Sodom and Gomorrah in the book of Genesis, that the citizens actually forced themselves upon an angel. And the event is supposedly hinted at in Genesis 19:5, where the crowd outside of a man named Lot's house are demanding that they should be allowed to have sex with the two angels inside. The theory of God's ego death claims that the crowd did actually violate the angels, but when the Bible was compiled, this event was toned down. Obviously, it's not enough to say that God himself was there. And another factor suggests that God was actually the two angels that were sent there, and yeah, he burnt the kingdoms to the ground. This is one side of the theory, and another interpretation is that by having an ego death, you essentially become God, or you can get rid of all ego and become God, something like that. All right, next up we have grand soy theory, and man, we've talked about this one like just about in every fucking tier. But yes, soy being fed to you, big estrogen, lots of estrogen, turns you into a woman, essentially emasculating you. That's the theory. That's literally the theory, bro. All right, next up we have the golden rules of nature. And there's a theory that there are 5 golden rules of nature, and breaking any one of these 5 golden rules results in illness and disharmony. And these 5 golden rules are balance, live with balance, think with balance, act with balance, and love with balance. Grow, never grow up, always be growing up, shifting, changing, adapting, and reconsidering. Connected, how you treat the world is how you treat yourself. What goes around comes around. Just remember that what you do to others, you're actually doing to yourself. Harmony. Life is music. It's the diversity of it that makes it the greatest melody. Most of that song is played in your mind, your thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards others in your life. And love. Love your work, and your work will love you. Love your world, and your world will love you. Become immune from wanting people to love you. Just do with love, give with love, and be it. Those are the 5 golden rules of nature. There is no conspiracy. Yeah, that's literally it, man. That everything that happens, there's no conspiracy behind it. It just happens. No need to overthink anything. It just happens at face value. And yeah, that's literally it. There are no conspiracies. And that's the conspiracy. All right, next up we have God's last wish. And this refers to a theory that God deciding or knowing that non-existence and death is inherently better than existence and life. He found the answer to this philosophical question that we as humans ask ourselves every day when we get up: to be or not to be. And this is the theory that God came to the conclusion that the answer is not to be, and decided to kill himself. And his only obstacle reaching redemption or non-existence was himself. So he had himself split into pieces, and we are remnants of those pieces, existing solely to die and grant God's last wish. Man, that's poetic, man. I like that one. It ties into this other theory that I like, and that's that we are essentially the extension of the universe experiencing itself. If you want to get into the whole scientific aspect of this and non-religious, we are essentially the universe experiencing itself, or God experiencing the end. Some nice food for thought. Okay, and last but not least, we have the final understanding. And this is essentially what I could find on this, is that we have to be able to understand and come to terms with the fact that we don't understand everything. The final understanding is where you understand that everything could be a lie, and maybe the truth is just stranger than fiction, something that is inherently unimaginable as a human. Because, there's only so much that we could comprehend. I think being okay with that is the final understanding. But yeah, that's it, bro. Damn. It's been about 2 years. I'm glad we've been able to cap it off. I hope you guys have enjoyed every single second of this. It feels good to end this series out, man. Despite all these conspiracy theories, know that you, whoever's listening to this shit, whoever's watching this shit, I don't know. I want to say some deep shit, but I don't know. I'll just keep it simple, bro. I love you, man. I hope all is well. And yeah, thank you for watching.